Anyway, Lucy and everybody else who may show in or listening to the recording, welcome to a pretty, I think this is going to be 30 minutes or under, probably under, fantastic research enhancing websites. A lot of my conversations have been about the great databases, which are subscription based. Probably at this point in your college life, you'll think that that's not a big deal, but often one of the number one questions I have from students who leave is like, how can I get back into the databases and use them? And you have to actually be participating or going to a college to be able to use the databases they buy or be a part of a business that owns them. So they have some value that will come to you as time goes on. Today, I want to talk about some things that are kind of different, and I consider these a value pack. Like I would bookmark these, and I use them a lot during my time doing my different types of studies. They're kind of different. Futurity does a particular thing. It is a database. If you're uncomfortable reading scholarly articles, it makes them readable. It uses just a few universities, so it does have some authority. If we talk about the CRAP test with currency, relevancy, authority, accuracy, and purpose, and its purpose is to inform, is not selling you anything, but it really does kind of ease your way into using some of the scholarly articles, and it kind of helps you keep up on the topic in a way that's a little bit more breezy than some of the other things that I've seen out there. Pew Research Center is one of those few rare things that really genuinely tries to be impartial, nonpartisan. It doesn't make policy decisions. It just tries to go out and find out what people feel, think about different ideas, and it presents those so you, as the researcher, can use them. The Gallup News, unlike Pew Research, which is a nonprofit, is a for-profit business. It does slightly a similar thing, and it really tries to keep up on business politics and well-being and some of the things that are a little bit more monetized than, say, Pew Research Center. But it will have the bias that it would eventually like you to buy into their product, but there's a lot of it available free. Wolfram Alpha, if you've never seen it before, is a surprisingly delicious thing. It's like math Google, and you can actually do search, and you can actually put your algebra or statistics problems in there, and it can solve them and do a couple of different things. And finally, I'm going to end up with a Twitter advanced search. Twitter is really it is our instant news, our most current news source. And there are ways to use it that make it a lot more useful as a research tool than just as a way to kind of zone out and go through the feed and, you know, worry about cats and things like that. But cats are also awesome as well. So for some reason, I set this to the About page for futurity. I really have a hard time saying it, frankly. It's kind of like a really odd word. But I did it because I want to show you when I'm saying these are really powerful places, I want to show you how I determine what that is to some degree. I see that it has editors, and I see that I can reach them as a governing board. And I see these people are connected to universities or think tanks in some case. These have university partners, and they have people that contribute to them. So I can see who each of these people are. And so I can have like a certain level of confidence when I look at this. When I click, I call this the pancake button. When I click on the pancake button, today my practice word is climate change. You'll see it brings up, it's a highly readable screen. It's not what you would expect from a scholarly article or something academic, but I want to show you what it does. You'll see the title of this particular article from the University of Arizona: Climate Change Threatens a Scary Number of Plant Species. And that's a very readable, regular language type piece. And it beautifully breaks down what the article was about, what the study was about, how long it took them to do this particular thing, who was involved, and it gives me a lot of transparency. I know who did it, and I have a great deal of information about it. If they cite something, they attribute it to a person or thing or a place, and it's something I can read and I can understand. But if I want to go deeper to the original study and go here, this highly readable thing about scare plants that are scary that are going out. It's so scary how plants are going, leaving us and not returning. It's actually a research article called The Commonness of Rarity, Global and Future Distribution of Rarity Across Land Plants. And the concept rarity is something in botany that is searchable and in other sciences. So as a regular reader, you might not know those terms. And having read this title, you might not know that you have a 10-year study on something about climate change in plants. And I think this is like one of the many miracles of this particular thing. I almost want to practice writing this way because it takes like 40 pages of science and reduces it to a beautiful, highly readable page. I would use this too if I was trying to keep up with my profession or just trying to kind of increase my brain cells sometimes. I like to kind of keep up with what kind of research is going on and how the research was done. And additionally, it's an excellent place to do your research on any topic because you have here a very nice search bar. Do you like that one? Does it have any resonance with you, Lucy?
Yeah, I like that.
It's kind of cool. And a lot of times people say, I wish I could read it. I'm like, oh, there's kind of a way you can
Mm-hmm.
read it a little bit. So Pew Research is something you probably see almost every day and in a way don't realize it, but it's a group of people. I'm going to go to the about. They even have a helpful little mission statement from the person. They're nonprofit, nonpartisan, non-advocacy. They value independence, objectivity, accuracy, rigor, humility, transparency, and innovation. And this makes it a really unusual source because even if we're looking at something like futurity, we might have a group of scientists that do have sort of a mission to prove something, even though they don't state it. And there might be slight biases or different things going on. But here is a mission statement of genuinely trying to bring out information and make it available to people. Now, what type of information is that? They have quite a few different types of topics, and they review and survey and talk to people about their feelings and ideas or definitions of things. So if you looked at something about older adults, they're talking about aging populations, how people who are aging spend their time. They do a comparison with older and younger and all sorts of things like that that you can review. But importantly, suppose you're just doing your research topic, you can come here and put in climate change, and it's going to have things that are really very quite current. They're going to be doing little fact tank searches, reports on different types of things in regard to climate change. They're highly readable, they're easy to cite, and when you're trying to make a point, they really do illustrate topics beautifully. One of the things I most love about it is when we're talking about keywords and doing research, the library and other databases do have like a filter by topics, but when you look at the filters they use, they're really sharply different, and they might even influence how you do your own research. It has things about they're going to look at climate change and put it against the lens of religion, bioethics, the political polarization that's going on right now, what you might believe about climate change over another and why. How you may think about climate change if you're a person who does or does not believe in evolution. And this really does give you access to a great amount of real uh, research that doesn't tell you what to think, but allows you to bring it in into your critical thinking process. So it really is a beautifully done piece, and I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but now you've seen the title, you'll start realizing that you see it quite commonly, probably in the news or the radio almost every single day. But it's a site that you can also use and search for free and create your own conclusions, or if you're inclined to do so, a podcast or something interesting like that, and kind of use its content in different ways. Now, Gallup News is kind of going to do the same thing, but it's a for-profit business, and it wants to sell you some of its services if you're a large corporation. But it does have some really key things. You absolutely probably have heard about Gallup's presidential polls. It's right here. It's very big into elections and political sciences. You'll be able to come here and get some public opinion about all types of things about the election. Um, and all sorts of ideas that might actually be in discussion at various debates and things of that nature, approval levels, all these things. But again, all these are really interesting if you're trying to find topical things. It does have the magical search button where you can go in and search your topic. And I'll just do the climate change topic so we can kind of see what types of things come up here as well. It's going to talk about how it looks in the news. It's going to talk about what the American public wants. It's going to, Americans give efforts to preserve environment thumbs down. You'll see in a way that these, it has some things about politically polarizing. Just comparing it to the Pew Research, that it does have some really strongly worded titles that kind of do have kind of a different kind of leaning in it, or and they kind of take their information and might kind of run it through a news process, but it still gives you some of the original access, the questions, and the polls they use to kind of get this information to put it out there for you. And another one of the things that's beautiful about it, it's exquisitely relevant and up to date. And what you see is what you get. It's full text. And if it's something that people are talking about, trying to do laws or legislation about, having conversations and family fights about, it's probably going to be in this particular website too. Finally, I got to the last two. This Wolfram Alpha is it's kind of hard for me to say, computational intelligence. It has a lot of examples of what it will do. It can do calculate and do some plotting and graphics. If you're having a hard time with economics, for instance, it can kind of help you out with that. Statistics in algebra and geometry, you're going to find some help here. Sometimes you think there are not databases for these things, but actually there is a math database that can help you with it. Um, it's not going to help you out with climate change. If you wanted to know something about the flooding in Miami or something that might be measured in climate change, then it would absolutely have a piece like that. But one of its gorgeous pieces that it does is demographics, which is racial, social, economic information about an area. So if we put in Moses Lake, Washington, I don't know if it's going to hate me for not spelling it right. It is really picky about that, so I'm going to fix that Washington piece. So what it's going to show us is, it's assuming it's not a lake, it also lets us know how it's thinking, which is kind of interesting. It's going to, is it demographics? Is that it? Does it provide, and sometimes it's really uneven, it doesn't provide me with the same thing. But in this case, it broke it up. So is a city, uses a state, it gives you chances to fix it. So I'm going to try to fix the search. I wish that was in everything. It is, and assuming lake is not. Oh, I forgot the S in lake. So we'll be able to fix that. So what this shows me is not everything that I want, but it does show a racial breakdown, Hispanic and US citizens. When I have the best possible search, let me put Moses Lake. See, now I'm like, why is it different than it was a few hours ago? Demographics. I do not know the answer. Oh, see, this is much better. So you might sometimes need to do the search a few times. I don't know if you've ever noticed the city when you come in says, I think, 22,600 people. You can see here that our city signs need to be changed. And while there may be this amount of people in town, surrounding our area is 91,000 people. And also, of course, we already know it gives a racial breakdown. So you could put things in here like cities and other ideas. You can even compare movies, like their gross or how many people saw them or how many theaters it played in. So any place that has statistics is able to go out there, pull them in and do comparisons for you. which is really quite unusual. And again, it can help you with your math and your geometry and your statistics if you need that help. Finally, we're getting to Twitter Advanced Search, and it's kind of like a little floater over the top. And like the Google Advanced, which kind of gives you some ideas, none of these words, these hashtags, it lets you build things. I'm going to use the climate change research. Now, when you're doing your citations, it's not entirely likely you'll cite a tweet. You may, but usually what this search will do will take you to something else. The first thing it does, it gives us some of the organizations and associations, and you can view all. It brings up some of the top ones, and you can follow them or go look at their feeds. You can also go wider or narrower, like if you want to find climate change research scientists closer to you or associations, you could select this, and it also gives you an advanced search. What it will give you is different places doing research and talking about what they're doing. So it's not this tweet itself that has value, but perhaps this speech that Jeff Bezos did to pledge some money. You might want to click through and find that. Here we'll see how did not even know there was a presidential candidate, Bill Weld, but he stopped at Woods Hole Research Center. So you might want to go through and see the case this person and other people are making about climate change with the presidency. So sometimes what it does inadvertently is just give you some real current updated second-by-second looks at your topic, and it may look at them in ways you hadn't thought of. Like we'd gone through all those pieces, but we really hadn't had a panel of a research group that's talking to presidential candidates and trying to determine what they're doing. This talks about some offsets in some jargon. Some people, there's like a way now, if you take down a forest, if you save another forest somewhere, that's considered an offset. It's a big place of controversy. So this may be able to take you through to an article like that. And then of course, we have the other articles that we generally have that are kind of like regular people. But this talks about a video, and you could click through and see that. So the use for the Twitter would be, of course, for currency, for locating those sources that just haven't been put together by the Google search engine, because we want something that's fresh and new. If you have some new ideas and thoughts and things, those are not the things that are necessarily showing up in Google because the algorithm works against it. So by going to something in social media and avoiding the hashtags and things like that and just using a real search in it, you're able to get some freshness that your research may not have had. You probably are able to find some people that you can talk to and find and actually communicate with and take your research to a different level. And that is all 5 of the fantastic research enhancing websites that I would like to recommend. Did any of those look interesting, Lucy?
Yeah, I think it was very helpful. Like just the point of the hashtag, which like in this day and age, it's so common for us to select that because it's easy access and whatnot. But it's going back to the original of searching for the topic and having that clear perspective. I think that was very, for me, it was
It is.
eye-opening.
No, it is useful to understand, like, you actually don't need the hashtag in Twitter. It will search the words. Do you know what I mean? And it's a nice
Right.
way of connecting ideas, but when you're doing research, you're like, "Oh, I don't need the hashtag. I can just go right and use the word like they did back in the old days." Or
I
something.
know, right?
But anyway, so I hope you find this helpful. I'm going to send you the piece that I always send you. Give me a second to find my link so I can send it to your professor to let him know you were here. Drive. You really should keep it somewhere easier to find. I use Google Drive like this huge, ridiculous database. I tell you what, it's one of the best things out there. And yes, it's the huge long one. So thank you very much for coming. make sure you fill that out. I wanna make sure you fill it out before I take it down.
Um,